Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Erin on the podcast. She's a fellow Minnesotan coming on, which I'm always excited to talk to. And yeah, she just got done with her first show a while back, and we're just on here to share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Erin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I normally ask guests what the weather's like, but being that you're only like 3 towns away from me, it's dark and gloomy. Hey, this is perfect walking weather for me, though, because then I don't have to worry about getting sunburned. You know, this is the only time that I really enjoy that. But yeah, before I just get all depressed, just even looking out the window, because good God, I mean, it's been rainy the last few days. But before we get into all that, Erin, to get things started, why don't you just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
Oh, so I had a feeling you would ask me that. And I also feel like I've got like a long version and a short version.
Take as much time as you want, trust me.
Well, I think if I think back, because I do get asked this sometimes, like, why did you get into this? Like, how did you get started with like going to the gym? Well, I think it started when like I was like a gym person before COVID and loved it. I was doing a lot of group fitness classes. It was so much fun. And then right before COVID started, I stopped going to the gym and I stopped working out. And I'm a teacher, and I ended up teaching from home for the 2020-21 school year. And all this time had passed, and I was working from home, and the isolation of not like being at school with my teacher friends and everything. I was just feeling I gained weight and like unhealthy weight, and I was like just feeling really depressed. And I suddenly it was February, March of the school year, and I was like, I am in horrible shape physically and mentally. I'm just in terrible shape right now. And I kind of realized, what was missing was going to the gym. And I renewed my membership. I went back, and it was like even after the first day back, just like everything felt better. And it was just getting movement and exercise and getting back to fitness. And all of a sudden I was feeling so much better. And so I started a lot with just group fitness classes because the gym is intimidating. And I feel like people don't talk about that enough, but like the gym can be really intimidating, especially if you go to a big place. I go to Lifetime, and it's huge and there's a ton of people. And so when I first joined, I just stuck to the studio and my group fitness classes, and it was great. I mean, I loved it. I was having so much fun. And I did that for a few months, and then I kind of felt like I really need something more. And I knew that more part, the thing that I needed was weights. And it was that scary side of the gym that I had never gone to. And I'm like, it's over there. Everything I want is over there, but it's really scary. And so I got my husband, who has a lot of background in like lifting weights and strength training. I'm like, all right, how do I do this? I want to do this. I'm terrified. I got to figure this out. So I slowly but surely made my way over to the scary side of the gym. I started like a very, very simple training program. I probably had I'm like, it's upper body day. And I probably had 3 exercises I did. That's it. And it really just progressed from there. And the more time I spent on the scary side, the less scary it became. And all of a sudden, I'm going every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then I'm seeing all these same people. Hey, they're also here Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And suddenly it's like, okay, now there's like gym friends and like a whole community of people that we know each other. And then it's just like everything's just been great from there. And that's what got me into bodybuilding. It's just I had to make that leap to go over to the weights and get started.
Was there a certain moment that you decided to become a bodybuilder or give it a try, or was it just a lot of moments built together? Or was there a specific moment when you're just like, hey, this is something that I should do?
Yeah. So after like several months of lifting and like I was seeing results, and I think some of my gym friends were like seeing results, those newbie gains. Like I was like hardcore reaping the benefits of all the newbie gains of like just touching the barbell. So after a while, it was, other friends at the gym were like, "Hey, are you competing?" And I'm like, no, like, and then a week later someone else would be like, "Oh, are you doing competition, are you competing?" And I'm like, "You're crazy, that I'm so flattered you would even think that. Absolutely not, no way." And after a while of so many people kind of like, "You should compete, oh, you should compete," and me just really shrugging it off, like I don't, I'm like, I don't think I can do it. I don't know if I can handle that. Finally, I had started working with a trainer, and my trainer did a competition. And so I went to his competition, I watched him, and of course, all the other people. And going to that competition was so much fun. And it was after going to that competition, I was like, okay, I want to do this. And it was like a week later, and like I had to think about this, think about that. And I'm like, all right, sign me up. And then I signed up for my first competition.
What was one thing about the sport that surprised you the most when you finally started to get into it?
Um, oh, I think there were,
You can do more than one, obviously, yeah.
I knew it was going to be a lot of work. I think the nutrition surprised me. Like I knew that working out and training and lifting weights, I knew that was part of the package deal. That's what comes with it. Um, and that was my first time starting to track my macros. And I think it was surprising to me, like when I think from the very start of when I like first signed up to even through the competition and then reverse dieting, um, to realize the impact of nutrition and what a big impact bulking, cutting, maintaining, all those different phases. I just didn't realize how important nutrition was. And it's been fun to learn what food and how much food can affect my body. So that's been cool to learn.
That's one of the most fascinating things to me too, is just how much just even that one meal can really impact you and how just food impacts the body, and you become so much more attuned to that as you get more into the lifestyle. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast. This is one of my favorite questions because everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't need to train as much when they get started. And then they have that one body part that just drags behind, they have to train to oblivion. What's been one body part that you were just blessed with that you don't have to worry about as much? And then what's one body part that you just had to just drag behind?
um, I have been surprised, like, and so proud of my quads. Like, whoo, those just popped out of nowhere. Quads and my back, I have like, um, I felt like that really surprised me to like have a muscular back and big quads. Love it. I think my glutes are my weak area, and I think that was, even after competing, where I had a lot of really good things going for me in that competition, but I know that my glutes were an area that when I looked at my competitors on stage, that was an area that I was lacking. So I'm definitely hitting glutes really hard right now for getting ready for my next competition.
I always find that crazy that there can always just be on the leg itself. There's one body part that for a lot of people really takes off. A lot of times that is the story where it's like, oh, my glutes are really good, or my hamstrings or my calves or something like that. It's just amazing how one body part in like the same muscle group basically can be really taken off, and then the other one is just like refuses to cooperate. But I love asking that question because yeah, the human body is amazing and everyone is built differently. But being a school teacher, I mean, you got to get up early, which first of all, never in my life will I ever have a job that requires me to get up earlier than 8 a.m. I think is really what I really signed up for. But what is your time management like? Because that is a job that, I mean, you go in early and sometimes you even stay later, and then still being able to manage this healthy and fit lifestyle. How do you do it?
Um, well, I think like one thing I've kind of felt like I've had to give up is like any resemblance of a social life, which I feel bad about. Like I don't get to see my social life is like going to the gym, it seems like. But Um, Part of it is having to be really have boundaries at work. Like you said, it's so easy. I could easily spend 12 hours at school, no problem. And I used to do that when I was a new teacher, 15 years ago. I did work 10-hour days because I didn't have kids and I didn't have any other hobbies. It's easy to do. So part of it is just when I'm at school, I work really, really hard. And and then I have to tell myself it's 4:15. Um, Whatever I have done is done for the day and I have to go. And so it part of it's just making myself, I work as hard as I can the hours I'm there, and then I have my gym time, and then I have my family time, and then I need to sleep. And so it's really just having to have boundaries with myself and tell myself like I just need to be done with this because I have the next thing, and making sure that I'm prioritizing what's important. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Do we have a dog alert on the podcast?
Yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Her name is Hildy, and she's gigantic.
Oh, that is so cute. Hi, Hildy.
Okay, go away now.
Hey, your dog is forever going to be part of also the dog segment that I have of the podcast where every time a dog's been on the show. So, hey, Hildy's now going to be living on forever on the DD on the Spot podcast as the dog. That is, I mean, I'm one of the biggest dog lovers out there. We have a little Cavachon. Your dog would step on our dog and probably, take care of it. But our dog thinks that she's the toughest thing on the planet. And then as soon as you get to within 5 feet of her, she rolls over because she knows the fight's over. Her bark is, 100 times worse than her bite. But yeah, that is awesome. And I mean, what was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced them, like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try?
It was a big thing I had to talk about with my husband because I knew just the time commitments and even the financial commitment. I was like, I can't take this on if I don't have your support. And so it was really important to me that I had his support, which I do. He's been incredibly supportive. But it was like, okay, let's talk about this. Here's what I want to do. Can we make this work? And so we just had to talk about it, and we have made it work. Everything from like he helps me meal prep, and my kids are like, oh, don't forget to weigh that before you eat it. Like even my kids are really supportive. And so I think that's the biggest part is would not be able to do all of this if I didn't have their support and they're cheering me on.
I've always said this: the unsung heroes of this podcast are the significant others in the family of the guests because they go through a lot. But please, we could do this entire podcast as if it's talking about like prep brain stories, which we will get into because prep brain is one of my favorite topics to cover. But this is so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport, and a lot of people just don't understand that because they'll just know it's the physical changes. But that mental impact is, first of all, it's 100 times more important than any of the physical changes that you'll make. But what has this journey been like for you mentally?
Wow. I've tried to be really open, like especially on social media, talking about that because you do just see the physical part, and there is a big mental aspect of it, and I think especially for women with like coming off post show and like gaining weight again, where I've gained 15 pounds since I competed in April. Like which is a lot. I'm a pretty small person, and there's a 15-pound difference between now and April, which is crazy. And it's hard because I'm also thinking about, well, I'm intentionally gaining weight. Like this is not an accident. I'm purposely eating a lot so that I can lift heavy and gain weight and gain muscle. So my coach has talked to me about that too, and he's like, I need you to be physically strong, but I need you to be mentally strong too, because bodybuilding can really mess with your head when you're watching yourself gain weight and lose weight and gain weight and lose weight, and even just like comparing yourself to other bodybuilders, and because you're comparing your body to their body, like that messes with your game too. So I think I do work really hard to get out of my own head. If I get in my head too much, I find myself getting down. And so I do try really hard to just remind myself to focus on what I can control and focus on the positive aspects because that can be really tough. I'm glad you mentioned that.
That is reason number 2 why I never would compete, is only because of social media too, because I would be that guy where I would be looking at other dudes' photos and I'd be like, oh my God, he looks so great. Like I can't compare. So that's another thing too, where people just, again, all these little things that add up to the sport of bodybuilding that people just don't know. That's why I love to bring them up and, talk about them on the podcast. But I do gotta ask, so what is the students' reaction like as you're getting more and more into the contest shape? What is their, because I mean, kids at any age can be hilarious in some of the comments that they make.
Yes. Well, I teach kindergarten,
Oh God.
so it's not really something like talk about with them. They did notice like I got really long hair extensions for my show, so like when I came to school with my super long hair, they were kind of like, "What?" Like they were a little confused by that. Um, I made a joke with my kid one time. They're like, "Can you open my glue stick?" And I said, "Well, good thing your teacher's a bodybuilder." And I go to take the cap off the glue stick, and I couldn't do it. Of course, and it was stuck. I said, "Okay, I'm sorry. Just grab a new one." And then we both kind of laughed because I was trying to make a joke and it didn't work out. But yeah, my students are kind of don't really know about it other than when my hair changes.
One of the most emasculating moments for me was when I was in my best shape, like when I was like 20, 21, and I was working out constantly. I went on a date and there was a bottle of water that she couldn't get open. So she asked me if I could. And I tried for like 2 minutes, like just straight. And I even just told her, I said, you can leave right now. I understand. I'll pick up the check. Like I get it now. I'm a failure now. I made the joke, but like, yeah, that was, I mean, and yeah, that is always hilarious to me, is just those funny moments like that. But yeah, it's great that,
Mhm.
and again, I mean, you could write a whole book based on what kindergartners say to each other anyway. So
I
I'm
know.
surprised. I'm surprised no one hasn't done that already, because they say some of the funniest things. But I mean, as you're getting closer to that show, we'll talk a little bit about prep right now because I waited long enough. How did you deal with that? Because especially being in a job where you got to be watching these kids, you got to be always alert. How did you deal with prep brain while you were still at working?
Um, I think it was just kind of having to compartmentalize things and you know, meal prep helped a lot. Like I typically, throughout prep, every Sunday was meal prep and I could make my lunches, make my dinners, I had all my containers. So that did help where I wasn't spending energy thinking about food because I at least could have that prepared and planned and ready to go. And like before, it was just when I'm at work, I'm really focused on the kids and trying not to think about other things other than making sure I'm like drinking water throughout the day and still on track with my macros. But I think just preparation and being prepared is really kind of what got me through it. Like planning my workouts, planning when I'm going to the gym, planning when I'm eating, planning what I'm eating. And then when it comes down to the day to day, I've already done all the hard work and then I can just roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I got to bring up the C word. Now, everyone, cardio. I hate it more than life itself. I mean, good God, just even thinking about it right now. I mean, I will probably be going on a walk after I'm done talking to her, just because I like to go on
Yes,
walks and I live next to a nature park. But how do you deal with cardio? Because unfortunately, when you get involved in this sport, it becomes a necessary evil.
it does. Yep. Um, I don't, at the gym when I'm on the treadmill, it's if I can like watch a show, I love Shark Tank. Shark Tank is always on. And so I find like if I can just watch a show on the treadmill, it flies by. And that is kind of the only thing that helps. I also don't love cardio. I don't love it. I can lift weight. I could be in the weight room and lift weights for 3 hours. I could do that all day, but I don't love cardio. But I know it's important. I know it's necessary. So I think just putting on a show, get through it, call it done.
So I got something now that will entertain you. Now, if you're ever feeling down, I'll send you a link. There's this guy that makes YouTube videos where he makes compilations, but he switches things up. So like, if it's a kid presenting on Shark Tank, he'll bring up like the worst reactions that the sharks have, and the sharks will be telling him like "screw you" or something like that, like "you're a con artist" or something like that, and then he'll show like the kid's face, like like he does funny things like that where it's like not the right reactions to the show. So I watch those all the time, and yeah, I've watched. I mean, before I went out of my parents' house, my mom and dad watched that show religiously almost, every time that it was on. So I became a fan of it just through that alone. But yeah, those are good. I mean, the only problem was with me during COVID, I ran out of shows and movies to watch where it's like,
Yeah.
you got to the point where you're like, now what? And then it's like, oh, I'm going to listen to the same podcast for the 15th time and I know exactly what they're going to say. But hey, it's something to keep me preoccupied. But we got to talk about posing too, because out of all the things in this lifestyle, some people don't understand that posing for a lot of these guests is the hardest thing. I mean, what is your relationship been like with posing?
I love it. That was another, like with nutrition, I knew that like bodybuilding, I was gonna have to lift weights, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta learn how to pose. So yeah, it's I think just in addition to everything I've learned about bodybuilding, which has been so fun to just learn this new skill, posing is fun. I mean, you can always, always improve. There's always something to work on to make better. I love my posing coach, Rebecca, and it's so fun. It's really fun to see um, just how you can work on improving all these little things with your arms and your hips, and um, it's been really exciting to learn how to do that. And I've been so surprised, like if I haven't posed in a while, how sore I get. I will leave a posing session with my coach, and just after like moving and twisting and like holding that position, I am so sore. I think I get more sore from posing than from actually lifting, but it's fun. I love it.
That was the number one thing that shocked me more than anything when I started this podcast is how many people said that same exact thing where, I mean, it's a workout in and of itself. And then I tried it for fun and I was like, okay, yeah, never doing that again. That's ridiculous. Like holding that, especially when you're holding it for that long. But out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
Ooh, I love the front pose. I love just holding that front pose right in. Um, Probably my least favorite is the back pose. I feel like I still need to improve on that. Um, I have been working a lot on my transitions. I'm very excited to show my coach tomorrow. Transitions are fun, but I really need to work on my back pose. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a work in progress too. You're never going to be perfect at it. That's the only other gripe that I have really with posing too is just, yeah, you can never be perfect at it. Now there are some that get pretty darn close, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
always struggling. And we talked a little bit about nutrition, but what were some of the biggest personal nutritional things for you that really shocked you or you were really amazed by when you got started? Because everyone's different. I mean, some person could eat one different food and it just impacts them a different way.
hmm Um, wow, I don't know. I guess I have not I've not eaten so much meat in my life. And having to, making sure that I'm hitting my protein. Like you can't just have protein shakes and protein bars all day. Like you actually have to eat meat. So I think that's been interesting to be like, wow, chicken and beef again. Yay. But I feel like even with, a lot of competitors talk about gut health and hormone health and all of that. And I think that my gut health and hormone health has stayed very consistent and normal. So maybe I'm one of the lucky ones that has all been pretty normal and stable for me, even through the ups and downs of prep and reverse.
I'm never even going to mention the word GUT health because I mocked it one time on this podcast where I was like, gut health, what's that? And I was like, oh, that just seems like, just don't eat as much. And then little would I know, like a week later, I had like a month-long thing where I would wake up at like 3 a.m. just with the worst stomach aches possible. So just for my safety, I'm not insulting it at all. I'm not even saying it by words. It's like Macbeth, where you don't even say the name of the play, basically. And then, so knock on wood again that doesn't happen to me. But yeah, it is so important that people really understand that too. And again, that's the thing that makes me laugh about is especially on the women's side, they don't understand just how much food they're going to have to eat too as well. You're just constantly eating all the time. And then I always tell them, well, that's the one thing that you have where I was like, thank God you're not a guy then, because good God, those guys, how they're not throwing up constantly, I don't understand because they're putting in so much food. But yeah, it's again, all these little things that I just, love to bring up. But if there was one food that you could make healthy that you could eat all the time, what would it be?
Oh, pizza. I love pizza. I love pizza.
I got Papa John's waiting for me downstairs after we're done talking here. So that's my Friday treat that I do every Friday. So yeah, that would be a good one for me. Or burgers too. Obviously, I'm just gonna be the most basic person ever. But you would think by now that they would have invented a healthy version of it that like actually tastes the same and stuff. I don't understand how that's not a thing. But when you walked on that stage finally after those months upon months of hard work, what was that moment like for you?
Um, Leading up to it was not nervous at all. I was so excited and I was feeling really confident. And then as soon as I got out there and they tell you backstage like what order to line up, and I was first in all the divisions. They're like, "Erin, you're first." Like, ah. So then I suddenly got really, really nervous because I had to be the first person to walk out on stage. So as soon as I hit the stage, um, I was unexpectedly very, very nervous, and I was actually shaking. Like I couldn't even control it. I was just shaking, shaking, shaking. Um, but I entered 4 divisions. I did debut, novice, open, and masters. So debut was first, and I was super nervous. But by the time I went out there again for novice, and again for masters, and again for open, um, I was, feeling less nervous. So that's kind of like with wanting to compete again, and I'm competing again in October. Um, I'm hoping that like nervousness goes away, and I really want to make sure that I have stage experience so that I can practice being comfortable up there and not be nervous. So
It's one of the few times that having the last name Johnson really helps out because you're as a J, I'm always in the middle almost, and so you never have to worry about that. But yeah, I couldn't imagine my first show them being like, okay, you're the first one, go out there. I would, yeah. Oof.
yeah.
So more power to you. But when you were on that stage, does time seem to slow down or did it seem to speed up? Because I know a lot of people like they either have that effect where it just seems so much faster than it actually is, and then they have other people who are like, oh my god, this is the longest moments of my life.
Well, it felt different for all the divisions. The debut division was really big. I think there were 9 of us on stage, and so that felt like I was up there forever because they were moving people around and had like some people off to the side and some in front. Um, and that felt really long because then when I was like off to the side, I had to hold that front pose for so long, felt forever. But then I came back later for the masters, which was the over 35, and there were only 3 of us. And they had us on, do a full turn, come back and leave. It was like I think we were on stage for like a minute. It was so fast. So it just depended on like every group had a different number of competitors, and so each division felt really different.
What was your post show meal?
Macaroni and cheese. We went to a restaurant, and like I specifically picked that restaurant because they had mac and cheese on the menu.
That would be yeah, that would be up there for me too. At least you're not one of those guests that said salad. That's when I just feel sorry for them, and I'm like, oh my god. I've actually had guests that have actually said that, and I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, do I need to give you the number that like you can call someone and talk to someone because if you're having salad afterwards, but yeah, mac and cheese that is a great substitute. And
Oh yeah.
you brought it up before, but post show blues, it's a thing that happens. Like you said, you put on like 15 pounds. I've had other guests that have put on 40 or 50. I mean, it's just amazing how fast the human body really gets back into the things after you've been dieting for so long. But how have you dealt with that? And when as you go on in your career, is there anything that you've learned from this first post show that you're going to apply to the next post show so maybe it won't be as bad as it was? Because as many times, and I know saying this as many times as people said that like, oh, I'm going to learn and be better, I'll have them on a year later and they'll be like, yep, same thing. I same thing. Nothing changed. Like I still felt bad, but how has your first post show been?
Um, well, I think with this one, the first like 2, 3 weeks after the show were really awesome because I was just at the beginning of the reverse diet and kind of like getting those carbs back. And it was like, ooh, I'm like, I look really good because I wasn't so lean. Like I was incredibly lean on stage. So kind of just even gaining like 5 pounds was really good. And but then I made the decision to compete again in October. So rather than kind of reversing into maintenance, I reversed like kind of up into a surplus. So that's part of like why I've gained so much weight because I didn't just, reverse into maintenance. Like reversing up into a surplus was totally different. So I think like after this show, my plan is to take, at minimum a year to build before I even think about doing another prep. So I think after October, I'm just gonna work my way back up to maintenance and kind of live life at maintenance for a while. And if I get, closer down the road to thinking, long term, because I need to take a super, super long off season to be at maintenance, build, grow, and all of that. So this next post show will be a little different because I'm not going to jump into a surplus right away, and I'm going to enjoy life at maintenance for a while.
Well, good for you, because I've talked to so many people that burn out because they do like all those shows year after year and they never allow themselves that time to rest and grow. So I think more people are starting to do that now. So that is great. Are you doing
Mhm.
the show in Burnsville?
Um, Bloomington.
Bloomington. Okay, where's that?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Is that at the Heritage Center? I think, or something.
Uh, I'm not doing the Viking.
Okay.
I'm doing the Clash of the Titans.
Oh, okay. Where's that at? Do you know?
I think it's at they just moved the venue.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be in Wayzata, and I think they just moved it to the high school, to Jefferson High School.
Okay, good God. I'm going to have to go back. I promised myself I wouldn't, but hey, it's been 10 years since I graduated, everyone. So I know that they had shows there before, but they do a different federation, I think, but they just moved that one to that. So I will
Yeah,
have to go. I will have to go to that one then, because it's literally 5 minutes away from where I live. So
there you
I will
go.
have to see you there. Yeah, that's great. It's yeah, because I remember even growing up, like they always had shows ever since like when I was like in kindergarten and stuff. They'd always have, because like you go there a weekend during the summer for like basketball tournaments, and then the bodybuilders would be getting ready in the parking lot on the other kind. We're like, oh, it must be bodybuilder week or something like that. So yeah,
Funny.
that is great. I will have to definitely go and check that out. But now we got to go into my favorite question to ask in this entire podcast.
Okay.
If you could change one thing about this lifestyle and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see change? And granted, you can do more than one, because I know most people, like, it just overloads their brain thinking about how many stuff they would do.
Oh, what I could change about bodybuilding?
Or the health and fitness in general. You can do either or. I mean, yeah.
Ooh, wow. Okay. What would I change? Okay, that's a big question. You know what? It would be great if women's bodybuilding was not as expensive. And I think women have to spend so much more money than men because we have to buy our suits. I think that's like an unfair thing with the women's bodybuilding and men's bodybuilding, is like we have to buy shoes and suits and hair and makeup, and like men don't have to do any of that. So that would be really great if the suits, they are, I mean, hundreds or thousands of dollars. I luckily got mine for under 1,000. And so I think that would be really cool if, it wasn't so expensive, it's like unevenly expensive for women. But yeah, I guess for fitness in general, I wish more people viewed it as, I think sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, well, like I don't have to do that because I'm not a bodybuilder." Like, "Oh, well, because you're a bodybuilder, I'm not a bodybuilder." And I want people to know that like fitness and nutrition and health is not just for bodybuilders. And other than the fact that I'm, being really strict with like working out and counting macros, I'm not doing anything that is crazy. I'm not doing anything that's like that regular people or non bodybuilders can't do. And, bodybuilding is just like diet and nutrition, but like a little extreme diet and nutrition. But like nutrition and exercise is for everyone. So I just feel like I want people to know that fitness and nutrition is for everyone. And if you want to take it to the extreme, and you can be a bodybuilder, and that's awesome. But, just exercising regularly and paying attention to what you eat and having good nutrition, that's for everyone.
I mean, yeah, bodybuilders make up 1 to 2% of probably the entire gym population, maybe at the most.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. And it's like, yeah, you go to any gym, you could find a handful of people that could compete at a natural bodybuilding show in a couple of weeks. So it's not It's not, I mean, again, those are the genetic freaks I got to point out, and I hate them more than life itself because I've met a handful of them in my life, and you're just like, I hope you wake up 400 pounds one day, but it hasn't happened yet just because those are the people that they eat 10 Snickers bars and don't even gain an ounce, and you're just like, what is going on here? But, yeah. And obviously, like, when you get closer to that show look, you sort of become like a mini celebrity where you just draw people's attention just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of the normal. What was that like dealing with the fact that, yeah, I am going to draw more attention as I get leaner and leaner for a show?
Um, yeah, it was really just like friends at the gym where I feel like everybody at the gym friends were super supportive, and that was great. Like, oh, you look so lean, like good job. And um, so for me, it was really positive to just have that support of gym people, um, because I see them so much. I see the same people multiple times a week, and so when it's like over the weeks and they're like, oh, or even now they're like, oh, you're really bulking up. I'm like, yeah, I know. Or just it's fun to have the support of gym friends when they're like, you look great, you're looking lean, looking awesome. And to me, just the positive comments and the positive support, just when dieting is so extreme and I'm like, I'm hungry and I'm tired and I'm cold and I'm crabby, but then my gym friend makes a supportive comment and I'm like, okay, then I it helps a lot.
Well, and talking about crabbiness, because this is something that affects it more than anything else, is sleep. And that is the unsung hero of, really any lifestyle. But you mentioned, yeah, you're a mom, you're a teacher, you do bodybuilding. Sleep just sounds so hard to even hear in between all three of those things because, good God, that is first of all, it's a busy schedule. So more power to you for being able to do it. But how do you manage a somewhat normal sleep schedule? Because you could have everything timed out perfectly. You could take a melatonin at the right time. You can do everything. That's not going to guarantee that you get that proper amount of sleep, especially as you get closer to a show. So, how do you deal with that, knowing that, like, hey, I need to get this amount of sleep, otherwise, I'm just going to be a zombie at my job, at the gym, and everything else?
Hmm. I think it's kind of like with work when I'm like, okay, it's 4:15, I gotta go. I cannot stay here till 6 o'clock and keep working. Um, it's kind of like with going to bed. I'm like, it's I don't know, whatever time. It's 9 o'clock. I need to like start doing my things to get ready for bed. It's 9:30. I need to do this, and I think it's just part of being really disciplined and saying I have to go to bed and just doing it and going to bed. Um, and but luckily, like for, anyone who works out, like when you work out and you lift weights, that improves your quality of sleep. So I think that just having that active lifestyle has, I don't really have sleep issues because I'm eating healthy foods, I'm working out, and so when it's time for bed, I go to bed. I also used to work out at night, like before I started competition prep, like because I wanted to, like, make sure I had time with my kids, so I would, like, put my kids to bed, and I would go to the gym at, like, 8 o'clock at night, and it was great. I love going when it's really quiet and there's hardly any people there, and I would kinda get lost in the time, and I would go sauna and get home super late. I would get home, like, 11 o'clock. Um, but once I started getting serious about competition prep, I'm like, I can't do that anymore because I can't be at the gym till 11 o'clock at night. I need to be asleep. So I think it's just like anything else, just being disciplined and being like, it's 9:30. I got to go to bed. Just have to do it. I can't do anything else. The laundry might be done. There's probably dishes in the sink, but like I got to go to bed.
How did you mentally deal with the fact that you're the only one in your family that's going to be restricting themselves food wise with diet and you're going to have family members eating anything? Was that a struggle for you at all? Because for me, that would be the breaking point for me.
um, Sometimes yes and no. I think that's just part of like I guess I feel proud that I feel like I can say I'm really disciplined, and so, I might make some other food for my kids, and I've got my prepared beef and rice, and that's what I'm gonna eat, and, um, so, yeah, it gets kinda challenging as far as, like, dinner breakfast and lunch is no big deal because I've prepared that, and lunch, I'm off at work doing my own thing, and so I think dinners are the main time when that gets kind of tricky because it's like, "Oh, I my husband needs to eat, my kids need to eat." So sometimes we end up eating different things, but we always have dinner together at the table. So even if we're eating different things, I've got like my bodybuilder meal. Um, just the fact that we can like all be together and eat at the table together, I think that helps with, even though like they might be having pizza and I'm having something else. I think the most important part is just that we're having that family time together, and I'm like, well, and reminding myself that it's temporary. And so I think that's the other part is prep is temporary, and it's just like I got to get through these few weeks, and then we can have pizza dinner together.
Have your kids sort of a little hopped on the fitness train now? Because I have had some guests where like their kids are like, "Oh, I want to go to the gym with you then, and I want to do that." So, what is their thoughts on all this?
Yeah, yeah. Um, my son is 9, almost 10, and he loves football, and so, he's like he wants to work out, he wants to lift weights because he wants to be strong for football. So, like we had he does some workouts at home just like with body weight, and he's all about it because he wants to be strong and fit for football. And for my daughter, I feel like it's really important for a girl that I want to make sure I talk about like being strong, and our focus is not on like, we need to be thin or be skinny or something like that. So we just talk a lot about like being strong and building muscles, and let's eat these types of food so that we can be strong and have muscles, and things like that. So yeah, they are definitely watching.
Well, your son is very lucky because he will actually probably, based on where you live, he'll be going to a school that's actually really good at football. I had to go to one that was not good at football, and I had to suffer through that for 3 years. So
Oh
hey,
no.
get ready for it. I think we won one game in the 3 years that I started on varsity. So I mean, I did catch a touchdown against Eden Prairie, who won state that year. So I was a tight end, so at least there was that. But yeah, knowing if they grew up in the Plymouth area, that's good God, they're going to be playing for a really good school. So hey, he's got something to look forward to there. At least there's that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I live like a mile away from the Eden Prairie Bloomington border, so I always tell my parents like, you couldn't have moved a mile to the west, and I could have gone to a good high school that like athletic wise. And they're like, oh well, but yeah, that's a whole conversation that we used to have all the time back in the day. But yeah, is there any, or I should say, for people just getting started, what's the best piece of advice that you have for people, for newcomers? Because so many people, I'm not gonna lie. I went to a festival in downtown Minneapolis a couple weeks ago, and just seeing how much people have let themselves go is just depressing, and I don't like to see it. So a lot of people need to make that change. But what advice do you have for people just to get started? Because for so many people, I find just taking that first step in the gym, it becomes so
Hmm.
hard to walk out without getting a workout in.
Yeah, I think. Um, oh wow, I don't know. There's so many pieces to that question. Like, which avenue should I go with? Um, Part of it is like I think discipline and consistency are like you have to be disciplined with yourself and say I'm going to the gym, or I mean even if it's not the gym, like there's plenty of things you can do at home. It's being disciplined with yourself because you're not going to be motivated. Like it is very comfortable and easy to sit down and watch a show. Um, and the motivation is not always going to be there. I don't feel motivated all the time to go work out, but I have the discipline to say, yes, I'm going to work out. So I think just you have to be disciplined with yourself. You have to stay consistent. You don't have to be perfect, but you need to be consistent. And stepping outside of your comfort zone, because growth and change and all of the good things happen when you're uncomfortable and when you step outside of your comfort zone. That's been a huge learning experience for me, is everything I've done, and so much that I've been able to experience growth and change and just personal growth has been stepping outside of my comfort zone and being uncomfortable. And now I am comfortable in places where I used to be uncomfortable, which is great. And find a good coach, because my coach, thanks Andrew, but like he has helped me so much, and having a coach who's gonna help you. And not everybody has to like get into fitness and hire a personal trainer, but I think having a coach or a trainer to help you get started, someone who knows what they're doing, is a great way to like help you get started and get somewhere.
I cannot stress enough how important it is that you also understand that like there are things in this world that you cannot You cannot predict. You just got to react and go with the flow. Cause there's so many times where like if I was getting ready to go for a walk or I was getting ready to go to the gym, there might be a blizzard or there might be a thunderstorm or something like that really just prevents me from leaving the house or doing anything. Like you are going to miss days. It's going to happen, but you just got to realize that nobody's perfect in their workout schedule. Nobody gets everything done. I mean, you are going to have days, and that's the difference between competitors, I think, and just average people is that the average person might give up after missing like a day or two, either because they're sick or something. But you just got to realize that, hey, muscle memory is a very important thing, and it is very powerful the longer that you work out. So there's so many times that people just give up because they think that like, oh, I didn't maintain my schedule for the week or the schedule for the month, and then they just sort of fall into it. Just realize nobody's perfect. You're going to mess up. You're going to miss days. It's just about getting back up and keeping back to it. Yeah.
Get back.
Yep.
Exactly.
100%. And lastly, when we do have you on in a year, because I'd love to have you on again and just share what you've been up to, where would you like to be at? I mean, I know you'll be in a bulking phase or in your off season, but where would you just like to be at a year from today?
A year from now, so next summer. Yeah. I think a year from now, I hope to be, yeah, in a building phase. I hope my delts are a lot bigger. I hope.
They're popping out. You're doing fine, but yeah.
Yeah, and I hope to be, you know, I'm not going to be in prep next summer. So I just hope to be, you know, after this competition season is kind of done for me, I want to just make sure I'm getting a little more balance back, because especially that last 6 weeks of prep is very, like, I've just had to tell my family, like, I don't exist. You are a single dad. I'm sorry, children. I'll see you in the morning. The last 6 weeks can be really tough. So, you know, after that, it's just, I got to get back to some family time. And, you know, a year from now, I just hope I'm building and I'm in a really good building phase and thinking about when the next competition is.
Please tell me you have a plan of like how to reward your family after all this. Like you're going to take them out or do something special with them.
Oh yeah. I don't know what that is yet, but yeah, definitely like after competition is like, we need a little
They've earned
mini.
it. You and them have both earned it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
for sure.
That is great. Yeah, because I mean, just that dedication alone, it really just is so inspiring to me. And that's, you know, why I love doing this. And again, Erin, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again and just, yeah, keep doing what you're doing and keep inspiring others. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and reaching out and inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. And again, fellow Minnesotans, I'll have as many of them on as I possibly can, just because I love the fact that we all have a joint misery when it comes to the seasons and other aspects of our lives. So, you know, it's a joint suffering that we all go through. But again, you know, everyone go and follow Erin. I'll leave a link down below to her Instagram page. Everyone go check her out. And yeah, again, Erin, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was a great time. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate that. That's the number one thing deep down. If that happens and the guest says that, you know, I can die happy. But again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.